As the school year gets underway, a new law that limits the hours teens can be on the job has come into effect. The goal to balance student life with work experience. Quebec's Labour Minister is Jean Boulet, and he joins us on the line. Minister Boulet, welcome back.
Good morning, Elias.
So how do you view, now that it's the law, and I know there was a lot of work done and with other parties too, you worked with the other parties to get this done. How do you feel now that the law's in place?
I'm very happy, Elias. Of course, like you said, the first job of a child is to be a student. And there has to be a balance between work and study. We have to invest in their future. And with the back-to-school season, it's important to remind every organization, every company that the new provisions of the law respecting the regulation of child labor limit the number of weekly hours to 17, including a maximum of 10 from Monday to Friday for children subject to compulsory school attendance. And as you know, Elias, in Quebec, you have a duty to go to school up until you are 16 years old. Mm-hmm. So I'm satisfied, and there was a broad consensus between the employers' associations, the unions, the community organizations. So it's a new law.
So, when you proposed this law, I remember talking about it to our listeners. And I said to them, who should decide this? Should this be the government, or should parents decide how much a child works, right? And I got so many callers that said, you know what, government should stay out of this, and it's in our family that we should decide if a child's going to work. So you mentioned all the people you talked to. What about the parents in this issue?
Yeah, I understand this point of view. Of course, the parents have a responsibility in this situation, but it is a shared responsibility between the schools, the parents, the workplaces, the employers, and the unions. All the partners of the marketplace have to be involved and make sure that we reduce the number of work accidents. As I frequently mentioned, there was an increase of 640% in the number of work accidents between 2017 and 2022. So it's important to make sure that they work in a safe environment and that the employers identify the risk inherent to young workers 16 and below. So so I think it is a shared responsibility. I understand that the parents are preoccupied by the situation, but there was a survey that was completed by Léger for Réseau Québec Famille, Network Québec Family, in March 2023, and 46% of the parents surveyed said to Léger that the most important preoccupation is the number of work hours for their children during the school period. So it's important to make sure that all the people chime in and make sure that we protect them and that we make sure that they keep studying. It's the best way to guarantee them their best future, and their educational success is what is at the basis of this law.
We're with Quebec Labour Minister Jean Boulet. Jean, let me tell you something, a little story. I went to Trois-Rivières once, and while I was there, and of course, Trois-Rivières, that's your riding, I remember going to a little restaurant, and the server delivering me my coffee, il avait à peine 8 ans. He was so young. Maybe he was 10 years old, but he was so young. And I said, obviously family business, but I also said there must be such a labor shortage to see someone so young giving the coffee out at a diner. What about the labor shortage, Ministre Boulet? And do you think this law will have an impact on that?
I like to quote the Chief Executive Officer of the Conseil du Patronat du Québec, who very often repeated to the media and the different labor partners that the children are not the solution to the labor shortage. Mm-hmm. There are many different options. You have to take into consideration the risk associated with the work of those young children, not only the physical risk like repetitive work or a regular schedule, but also the psychological risk. At 8 years old, when you have to interact, or even below 14 years old, when you have to develop a relationship or interact with an adult, it's very difficult and it can create anxiety. And during the school, the periods where they have to attend school, it's even more acute. We have to make sure that they are well protected again and that they are safe when they work. And of course, it's beneficial. Up to a certain number of hours, it's good for a student to work. But many surveys, many studies concluded that beyond a certain number of hours, it brings about anxiety, stress, depression, and very other negative repercussions.
And there's some. Is there any exceptions we should be aware about? And I'm thinking about family businesses. Like there's a dépanneur that I used to go to all the time, and I just remember going to the dépanneur. If you go there in the afternoon after school, the kid would be one of the children of the parents that own the dépanneur, immigrant family, right? Immigrant family, and it's a family business. And one of the kids, they'd have their homework, but they'd also be working behind the cash if someone came in. Are there exceptions like for family business? Anything else we should be aware about?
It's a very good point, and it's important to highlight that there are a few exceptions for children under 14 in the law, and it's an extension of school and family life, and a child working in a family business, a small family business, it means with fewer than 10 employees, can work. It's one of the exceptions that we took into account, and it's very important to refer to that exception. There are a few others, like if you a child under 14 works in artistic production as a babysitter in a non-profit organization with a social or community vocation, like a summer camp, recreational organization, non-profit sports organization to assist another person. So we took into account the capacity, not only physical but psychological capacity of those young children to keep working even if they're under 14. But during the school, of course, they have to respect the limits I talked to you about at the beginning of the interview.
Now, so one last question for you, more broadly, on the question of, do we really have a labor shortage? If you listen to the Trudeau government, you listen to what they're saying in Ottawa, and you look at the immigration numbers in the rest of Canada, 500,000 people a year, and they keep saying, labor shortage, we need all these people. And clearly in Quebec, we have a different idea about it. And I've talked to some economists that say, you know what, there is a labor shortage, but it's not as bad as many people put it out to be. Simply put, companies are doing well and everyone wants to hire to make more money. That's not the same as a traditional labor shortage. I want to know your take. How bad is our quote-unquote labor shortage?
If I look at the vacant positions all across the country, it's in BC and in Quebec that we have the rates of vacant positions that are the highest. So it's an important labor shortage, but there are many options for employers to settle the situation by training their people. And training people is often the best way to recruit and have a rate of retention that is higher. Requalification, immigration is another option. And of course, automation, artificial intelligence, robotization, and so on and so forth. There are many options, but the labor shortage is quite acute in Quebec, Elias, but we have solutions, and every partner has to make sure that they have the best solutions that can be carried out in their own organizations.
Jean Boulet is Quebec's Labour Minister. Merci beaucoup, Jean. À bientôt.
Merci, Elias. Bonne journée, puis à bientôt.
Okay, take care.